I also listen to Eminem this morning. Okay, so I wanted to start today with asking you all a question. What's a word that comes to your mind when you think of politics?
Controversy.
Controversy, okay. What else?
Stress.
Stress. One more?
Political parties.
Political parties, okay, good. So 3 words that came to me were unrest, argumentative, and 2 parties looking for control.
Absolutely.
So I think we can all agree that this is something that we see on a daily basis. So part of why I think this is that people do not have an understanding of their own arguments. Oftentimes we get sucked into our own little bubbles and we don't expand our knowledge to see what's really going on in the world. So today I'm going to teach you all how to make your political arguments better. So I'm going to do that by going over why people think the way that they think. Then we're going to talk about looking at the opposing side of issues, like reading other articles, and finally keeping your discussions peaceful so that you can ultimately prove your point in a respectful way. So first off, your background matters. I think this is fairly obvious, but after doing some research and looking at a lot of studies, it's clear that where you grew up has a huge impact on what you think. So whether you came from a low-income neighborhood, a high-income neighborhood, a low-income school, a high-income school, whether you're part of a single mother or single father household or a nuclear family, all this has a profound impact on how you view the world because it's your bubble, it's where you grew up. So this is Jonathan Haidt. He's an American social psychologist. He's the author of The Moral Roots of Liberals and Conservatives, and he looked at why do liberals and conservatives think the way that they do. And it was really interesting. I actually had to kind of readjust my own perspective after looking at it. So this is a picture of AOC in her Netflix documentary, Knock Down the House. So progressives and liberals have this idea of we want to progress in society, we want to continue to push forward and change things. This is the foundation of their argument. They don't want to stay where they're at, they want to continue progressing forward. Whereas conservatives, they like where we're at. So we want to keep America exactly how it is right now, and we want to progress a little bit, but not too far. So when you look at the opposing viewpoints of this, you have one group that says, I want to continue progressing forward, the other one says we want to stay where we're at. So it's not just, oh, they think this about economics, maybe they think this about social issues. It really is, when you get on the left and right side of the aisle, a different perspective, a different foundation. So you have to, if you're a conservative, you have to target that from a liberal perspective, saying like, okay, here's my statistics that say that America's good where it's at. And if you're on the liberal side of the aisle, you have to say, here are my statistics that say, no, this is unfair, we need to progress forward. But if you don't attack that foundation, your argument holds no weight. So the New York Times had an experiment where they had 526 people for 4 days in Dallas, Texas, and all they did was talk politics. How do y'all think it went?
Not very peaceful.
Actually pretty good. So it was relatively peaceful. It was peaceful, not relatively peaceful. But they asked everyone when they left, they said, did you change your idea? Like your ideas on politics, did you like switch parties, anything like that? No. Very few people did. And part of this is because their arguments were not very good. So when we look at your arguments, you have to almost attack the other side of the aisle. You have to view it as an opportunity. You have to look at other publications and say, wow, I can read that, I can understand it, and I can come to a conclusion with my fact, like I can take my information, look at their information, and come up with rebuttals against it, come up with statistics that argue my point of view. And even if I don't agree with what they're saying, I can see their entire game plan. It's like a cheat sheet. Years ago, the Patriots were caught spying on practice for the Super Bowl for the other team. I mean, it's the same concept. So if you're a liberal, the key is you want to read outlets like the Daily Wire, and you want to see those arguments and say, okay, here's what I agree with, here's what I don't agree with, here's how I can rebut those arguments. Same thing if you're on the conservative side of the aisle. You need to read CNN, you need to read the Huffington Post, you need to look at this and say, okay, here's how I can take this and I can argue against it. So when I'm in a conversation with someone and they bring up a stat, they bring up a statistic, I can say, no, here's actually what that means. Here's my research that backs it up. So what you have to do your research. It can be difficult, but taking the time to read a couple articles is not going to take a lot of time out of your day. It's easy to do, and it's going to make you more informed overall. This mask is killing me. So peaceful in 2021? Yes, that's what I'm asking you to do. As crazy as that sounds. How do you do this? You get out of your comfort zone. It's very easy to stay in our little Baylor bubble and to not worry about what other people think. But in reality, how you're going to have meaningful political conversations is going with people that disagree with you in every way that you could ever imagine. So this is an example of what that looks like. This is Steven Crowder. He is a conservative talk show host. And one of the segments that he does is he goes into these like college towns and cities, and he'll put up a sign that says "Change my mind." And while those other segments can kind of be a little bit over the top and goofy, this one is specifically is, I want to hear your opinion. I want you to hear my opinion. We're going to have a rational conversation. And maybe one of us changes our mind, maybe they don't. But we want to rationalize our position so that it's not like the boogeyman. It's not like, oh, it's the big bad conservative. It's the crazy liberal. We want to have a rational, meaningful political discussion. Now, it doesn't always work. This is a picture of him years ago getting punched in the face by someone that disagreed with him. Do not be this guy. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. If anyone has heard of a story where punching someone in the face actually convinced the other person of your argument, please let me know. I've never found it. I don't think I will. So what did we learn today? So we learned that where you come from matters, and that your background and how you view the world is very important. And if you want to understand how someone thinks the way that they do, you have to look at where they come from, and you have to do your research. In terms of research, you have to get out of your comfort zone, and you have to look at opposing articles. Don't get stuck in your bubble of only looking at one side of the aisle. And finally, it is vitally important that we have these that we have these peaceful discussions, that we can rationalize our positions with each other, so that we can understand where people are coming from, and even if we don't convince them, that we can be respectful. It's the foundation of your argument. So now it's your turn. To be honest, nothing that I said here is rather hard to do. At most, it'll take 10 to 15 minutes to read another article. So get out there, be informed, and let's make a public more informed in this country. Thank you very much.